Well, good evening. Welcome to I think this is the 9th event we've had so far of the International Forum on Youth. We have one more tomorrow. I'll say a little bit about that later on. But welcome. This is our speakers panel. As you may know, because I see familiar faces, and many of you have been with us off and on all week. But if you're new to this event, this is our 3rd annual International Forum on Youth here at College of the Canyons. In year 1 in 2019, our theme was identity, youth identity. And then the following year in 2020, our theme was, it's our 12th this week, I'm learning. Okay, my attorney has just informed me that it's our 12th event this week.
You have to do some math, that's the problem.
I'm a historian, I'm not doing any more math. This is a tough crowd. But anyway, our first year, if I may continue, our first year was a theme. Our theme was identity, and then in 2020 we moved to another theme, which was migration, and we were migrating from an in-person world to a virtual world. So that was interesting. And then this year, our theme is transition, and I think that's a fitting topic for any year, but I think especially this year. I think we all know a lot of ways in which we're transitioning. One of the things we like to do with this speakers panel is kind of take stock of what all the things we've learned this week and hear from our experts in the field, and also build on some of the panels that have come before us. So what I'd like to do first is introduce myself, and then I want to turn it over to our panelists and ask them to introduce themselves. And then once we've done that, I have some prepared questions that I want to ask. And then we're always open to any of you putting questions in the chat or just shouting out your questions. I'd love for this to be as free-flowing and as conversational as we want it to be. But that's what we'll do. And then we'll save some time at the end to sum up things and field some questions from our audience. But as I said, I'm glad you're here. I'm Brent Riffle. I'm in the history department here at College of the Canyons, and I'm also one of our lead faculty involved with comprehensive internationalization here at College of the Canyons. And one of the key elements of comprehensive internationalization at this college is this event right here, the International Forum on Youth. So again, we're glad you're here. And I'm going to turn it over to our speaker panel to introduce themselves now, and I'm just going to go in the order that I see you in the boxes. So Daniel, welcome. Daniel, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm from Taiwan. I'm working in Taichung Municipal Huiwen High School, and I'm so excited to be here and share some experiences and learn from all the experts from different fields. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. Prakash, tell us who you are, sir.
Yeah, hello, namaste, and good morning from Pokhara, Nepal. I'm Prakash Chandra Giri. I'm an educator, English educator. I've been teaching English for about 12 years in Nepal. So Nepal is a beautiful country in South Asia. So I'm very honored to be with you today and to be present here. Some ideas and cascading new ideas and knowledge each other. So this is great international dimension in my life. Thank you.
Thanks, Prakash. Next up, Jun, please.
Hello, everyone. This is Jun Wang, and I'm the Assistant Provost for International Recruitment and Strategic Initiatives at the University of California, Riverside. I'm originally actually from South Africa, right, and Chinese immigrant from South Africa, and spent most of my time in higher education. And I've been at the UC Riverside for 15 years, actively involved in international affairs, globalization, and internationalization of our campus. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad you're here. And then Ryan is our other panelist. Ryan?
Hi, my name is Ryan Valenzuela. I'm a student here at College of the Canyons, and I'm currently an aerospace engineering major.
Thanks, Ryan. And then I want to bring back as additional panelists, because they have been so great this week and just earlier today in our student panel, Colin and Sana. Colin, reintroduce yourself if you would.
Hello, did you just call on me?
I just called on you.
I'm so sorry. I got my president in the back here giving me some very helpful conversation. It was a pleasure being a part of the last panel. My name is Colin Schneider. I am previously a computer science student. I am now a sociology major, and I'm extremely passionate about everything we've been talking about today. And it's very important, not just from a global perspective, but also from a national one, because, you know, I think when we come together, that makes a much better showing than when we say we're on our own and we should be, you know? So thank you.
Thanks, Colin. Sana?
Hello, everyone. My name is Senna, and I am a student worker here at ISP. I work at ISP and I'm a student. I am a double major, communication studies and admin to the justice system. And I'm president of Communication Studies Club, and I'm also a member of the speech team. And I'm so glad I'm here.
Thanks for being here. So for our student panelists that were with us earlier today, some of these questions are going to be very familiar to you. And I think I mentioned that because we want to actually kind of continue this conversation. And some of them I've revised a little bit, but I'm going to pose this first question that, again, is related to what we talked about in the last session. We'll just kind of go in order, but again, jump in whenever you want, but I'll call on you too at times. Let's start. We'll go back to you, Daniel, if you don't mind, if you'll start, and then everybody else can jump in. Daniel, what are the benefits of globalization and what are its downsides?
Okay. When we mention about globalization, let me tell in realistic idea, like this cell phone. It's an iPhone, right? So iPhone is like a American brand, and it's famous in the world. And the A14 processor is from Taiwan, and the flash memory is from Samsung, Korea, and the DRAM is from Microcom from USA, and 5G from USA. So what I mean, and all the cell phone is manufacturing from China. So I think when we mention about the globalization, actually it's just like everywhere near us, just exactly with us. And take the other example, when we mention globalization, we also need to talk about globalization, which means that when you see the Ronald McDonald's in Thailand, he will post the position like a Sawadika in Thailand, right? It's not only represent the American brand. And in India, we will eat like a curry with the hamburger. And we never have that in our country or in United States. Or like take the other example, like a Panda Express in United States. Actually, it's like a Chinese cuisine, but actually it cooks a little bit sweety and takes with already mixture with like American style, and you eat a main course with whole rice. But actually in Asia, we eat like we share the food. So we will order different cuisine together and we share it. But in the state, it become like a main course, just one dish, and the taste a little bit sweet to fit American people. So this is, I think, globalization just happened everywhere. And take another example, Starbucks in North America. And actually everyone celebrate the Halloween, but they won't say happy Halloween. They considering about the religion. So they will say happy holiday instead of that. So I think it's quite interesting. Every day we are facing this kind of global issue, and we know all the world happen in the world, and we respect differently. And actually, it just happened every day. Just actually, right now I'm in I'm in Canada, and when I arrived here in summer, and I found that everywhere is this one, and actually it's called pop-in. I'm not sure if you know this one or not. Yeah, you probably don't know. When you went to shopping mall, everywhere is this. And I at that time, I didn't care about this one. I just said, what is this? But last week, I just called back to my daughter and say hello to my daughter, and she just said, "Dad, do you know one stuff?" And she just exactly showed me like this. And it's exactly in Taiwan now. It's a fashion in Taiwan after 2 months. After 2 months. So I think it's a kind of globalization. One factory that makes something and it become fashionable in all the world, and it will adjust a little bit, become globalization. It is what I want to express. Thank you.
Thanks, Daniel. And my daughter has one of those too, and I didn't know what that was called, but she loves it too, and it's her favorite little thing. So I like your perspective there. Let me turn to Prakash. Same question. What are the benefits of globalization, and what are some of its major downsides?
Yeah, very interesting question. So as we are living in the exponential times, right? So people, they have been living the fast growing world. And I had seen one video, did you know? So that video really makes us think what the real globalization's impact. It has helped to bring great dimensions, like international dimensions in different sectors. For example, we can have some ideas on business and economics, and the people, they can go from one place to another, and they can bring some dimension beyond or by the cross-border traders in goods, in services, in technology. So we have a lot of benefits, like to be global citizen, we can be, and we can break down the stereotypes. We can be open with others. We can be globally citizen, and we can think globally and act locally in our context. So it has really some benefits to bring the dimensions, and which is international and global dimension, even in our local culture, in local context. It has some downwards also. It has some cons also. We can see like some cultures, they have been dying, so they have been killed or colonized. So there are some aspects we need to think of and be a lot, and the cultural aspects. So one very great point is that I am now culturally diplomat. I am now global citizen. So this is the great outcome of globalization.
Thank you. Colin, I noticed you nodding there. Do you want to jump in on this and comment on Prakash's thoughts there?
Absolutely. I'm loving what Daniel and Prakash has been saying. I look towards a society that, is more global than it is, divided up into these nations. I mean, while we all do have our own different local cultures and everything of that nature, as Martin Luther King once said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so as Prakash, aptly pointed out, there are, colonizations going on across the world. There's, entire species, entire races that are being like eradicated in some countries, you know what I mean? All kinds of horrible stuff that happens here and elsewhere. And I think if we were a bit more unified, then we would be able to sort of tackle those issues together. I mean, ideally, that's what I would like to see. I don't really agree with the way that some of people in our country feel that, we should just, figure it out for ourselves, and you should just pull yourself up from your bootstraps and go take care of yourself and don't worry about anybody else. I don't think that's the future. I think it's gonna, kill us in the end. So I completely agree with Prakash. It was just, I'll keep on nodding if you keep talking like that.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. Same question to Jun Wang. What are the benefits of globalization, and what are some of its major downsides?
Well, thank you so much. Excellent question, and I can't echo more with Daniel and Colin, and for your perspective on globalization. I think, looking at this screen, look at this, what we're doing today. This is globalization in reality. Canada, Nepal, Northern California, Southern California, in one room, seamlessly, right? And streaming line on Facebook to, hundreds, if not millions of people around the world. We're living in it. When we're talking about it, you don't realize, we just take it so advantage, right? this is something that in our daily life, but it's beyond that. Look at our faces, right? And look at our culture. We're speaking English, first of all. Did you notice that, right? It's a global language. No one even thought about it. No one even think about it. But all of us speaking one language, we can communicate seamlessly without any problem, right? There's a unified way of communication, unified way of adopting each other's culture, and a unified way to meet together now through Zoom, right? Without time differences. So globalization is really happening in our classroom, in our daily life through technology, iPhone, anything you touch, you feel. I mean, 99% chance is from somewhere else, right? And people around you. Have you noticed your neighbors, you know, your child's favorite toys, food, everything has been affected by this globalized effort, right? So when people are still challenging it and still isolating this, it's really silly, because really you can't live in a 19th century world anymore. This is 21st century and beyond. Now, when technology is so advanced, we're talking about metaverse and omniverse, and we're talking about virtual reality happening next to 10 years. And we're still challenging the concept of globalization. That's just silly, right? So that's just some fundamental we have to adapt. Then you look at the negative side of globalization, it's happening so fast. If anything about negative side, it's just happening so fast, and not all of us can adapt it overnight, right? So some concepts are still catching up. People are still trying to understand, how does TikTok change youth culture? How does social media affect people's mindset? How does it affect our daily work and the way we educate people? And all of those things are moving so fast, so trendy, so it requires a lot of learning curve for all of us, for people like me with some age here, so you need, now I'm getting old. My 5 years old is constantly teaching me all the new trendy stuff about globalization in her mindset. So I'm learning as well. So if any negative, from my humble opinion, is it's evolving so fast with a boost from the technology side and however you look at this, but that's the right trend. It's something inevitable, it's something non-stoppable, and something will continue forever, no matter someone like it or not. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And when we think about the benefits of globalization, I guess for me, one of the negatives would be the uneven uneven distribution of those benefits. Right, there's a lack of equity in the way the benefits and rewards of globalization are distributed around the world. And then also, I think, to your point, the politics are sometimes retrograde, if that makes sense. The political class can be behind the times in terms of adjusting to this. Certainly here in the United States, I mean, there's political movements here in the US that oppose globalization. But to your point, June, it's already happening. It's the air we breathe. So to oppose it is absolutely silly, really. It's how do we embrace and adjust and live in that world, not how do we oppose it. I think those are great points. Colin, you're nodding again. You've got something to say, I can tell. And then we're going to ask Ryan for his thoughts on this.
Oh, were you going to let Ryan speak?
I'm going to let Ryan speak, but you got your hand up, so we're just having a good conversation here. So go for it.
Okay, great. I didn't want to talk over anyone.
I just wanted
to. I just wanted to tack on to one of the negatives that I see, and its relation to how our legislators are not sort of catching up with like, let's say, business. I know that with business, we're now in a very competitive market where you kind of need a degree in a lot of fields to succeed, because it's a global marketplace now, and people can move here and they can get, a really good job, with their education. So we really have to learn how to compete. So we have issues in education where it's not equitable, and that makes us less competitive. And then also, I think, as far as the social issues that we face in the world, and that, certainly, for example, people produce, all kinds of stuff in China or Vietnam, or, some of these countries where labor laws are not as strict as in the United States, or let's say like the UK. So it would be interesting if we took a look at some of those things and we sort of balance the scale and work together to, make sure no one's getting taken advantage of, but also that we're allowing the economy to flourish. So I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's a great point. Ryan, same question to you. What are the benefits of globalization and what are some of its major downsides?
I think some of the benefits of globalization is the community it brings, which is on a worldwide aspect. I think it is important that different like communities and cultures and companies come together to figure out different solutions for some of the problems that we're facing. I would also agree with June about some of the downsides are the rapid, fast pace that it is growing at. Social media is definitely a big aspect of it, but I definitely think it's important that we, instead of trying to suppress it or anything, to navigate through the process and how we can use it to the best of its, to the best of how it can help all of us together.
Yeah, I think social media is a great example of what June was talking about, where, the impacts of social media were not immediately apparent. And then suddenly once people began to realize how impactful they were, social media had already really embedded itself into society. So yeah, great points there. So my next question, and this is a question that came up in a session we had last night, and I thought it was a really good one to turn to this group. And it relates, this is an international forum, but this forum is based in the United States in Southern California. And I wondered, it was a question that Jai Cheng Levine, who's with us tonight, asked, and I want to ask it to all of you. Has the United States lost its appeal as a destination for international students and for immigration? And if so, what are the consequences of this? And where are students going to look to study and to visit in the future? I asked about 4 questions there, so just grab one of them and talk about that. But has the U.S. lost its appeal as a destination for students and for travelers and for immigration? And what are your thoughts on that? Maybe we should go in reverse order. Ryan, you want to start with this one? You have a thought on this?
Sure. I think the U.S. does still hold an appeal, at least maybe particularly in the higher education section.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot of great aspects of coming to the US for just the different fields you can major in and stuff, and the higher quality education we offer to students from around the world.
Thank you. And then I want to bring Senna into this too, because you had so many smart comments to make in our student panel, and I know you have thoughts on these issues. So I'll go to June next, but Senna, same question to you. Has the U.S. lost some appeal, and if so, what are we to make of that? What are we to do about that?
I would say the U.S. definitely still holds a lot of the appeal for the higher education. Like Ryan said, a lot of international students are still coming in, including myself. We came in here for the better education, and still immigration, I think it still holds a big appeal. It might not be as big as before. With the Trump era, the immigration wasn't doing the best. I know Canada was doing better. I know a lot of other countries were doing better with immigration. But as far as I know, I think the higher education holds the bigger appeal.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. Same question to you, June. Has the U.S. lost its appeal, and if so, what are the consequences of that?
Thank you for the excellent question. Thank you both students who have answering from your own experience. Actually, this is a question I ask everybody as well. I when I meet with people from all around the world, I've been asking them, not just my student already here, but prospective students and parents and counselors and government officials from foreign affairs. I've been asking everybody, has the U.S. lost its interest? The majority answer is no. It's still appealing, very highly attractive at many levels, right? Higher education, as many of you indicated, we're still the superpower higher education kingdom here. We still deliver the best, and if not, the most advanced and pioneer technology, and law and business model and everything, right? You look at every single disciplinary area, biotechnology, vaccine, medicine, everything we're leading internationally, right? So higher education represents that because it's the tip of the ivory tower, and that represents the advancement of our technology, our thinking, our system, right? So there are a lot of advantages U.S. still carry. We're still the superpower, but that doesn't mean we're perfect. Let's just put it that way, right? The hesitations are there, and as every superpower grows into a certain stage, and I've been reading some books recently about the falling of the kingdom, which we're referring to many kingdoms in the past, right? The Turkish kingdoms, the Jewish kingdoms, the recent the UK, right? That started falling down, and all of these superpower countries followed certain patterns, right? It's the attractiveness has to be more inclusive, has to be more diverse, has to include and other cultures, like what we're trying to do. But US kind of took a pause on it during Trump's era, I would say. We kind of stopped our welcomeness to international, stopped our immigration policy, stopped many things that now people start hesitating. Is US still welcoming? Are we still looking forward to this diversity? Are we still looking forward to this inclusiveness? Are we losing the attractiveness? But I think the short answer is no. We're still very attractive to students. We're still the #1 in technology and higher education, no doubt. Business, everything, financial power, right? Military power, that's very important as well. But other countries are catching up. If we slow down, others will just surpass us. Look at what Canada is doing. Look at what Australia and New Zealand is doing, right? And the UK, right? The international education is their national strategy. The whole country is backing up. I mean, recently we got a call from the Canadian consulate asking us to send our students to Canada to work. They're coming all the way to US, to California to recruit people to work in Canada. This is the government calling us. This is a national strategy for them. But what are we doing? How are we recruiting talent and retaining talent and really keep them in this country and have the engine moving forward? So those are the things that keep me away from sleeping every night, right? So this is something we should work together as a team.
Yeah, I wonder if, it's not just a political issue over the last several years in the Trump era, but also a sense of complacency in the United States that might be driving this as well. I see a hand up. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. T-Wei, is that right? Do you have a comment or a question? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Oh, hi. Yeah, my name is Tiehua Piao. I'm actually not belongs to this panel. I'm a chemistry department teacher, but I'm interested in this topic, so I joined this meeting. My question here, I came from China long time ago, but I still have a connection with China. I have some friend, family over there, but they mentioned that from last year, Chinese international student hard to get the visa, American visa, to came here. So I think that is one of the problem that the number of Chinese students reduced, or they try to go to other country like United Kingdom, Australia. But based on what I know, the #1 choice for Chinese student seeking education abroad, still America, but just they mentioned that the visa is hard to get. So that's my comment here.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think that speaks directly to some of the changes that have happened over the last few years, where there's been an intentional effort to put up barriers. I want to hear from Prakash and Daniel and our students on this, but I know Saab, you have your hand up, and I know you have thoughts on this too. So jump in here, please.
Yeah, just a quick comment about the reputation or the state of the United States. Many of my the Japanese friends and their family, the ones who have small, or the students as children, some of them are concerned about the United States, partly because of what they hear in the media, what they see in the media, and I'm talking basically about almost the daily shootings that happen on campus. That you don't know if a student can go to school and it may not come back, and that could happen in outdoor concert halls and other places. The gun violence has become a pretty major issue. Basically, okay, if you can go to other countries where it's much safer, why go to the United States? And also, there are violence on the street and anti-racism. As you know, in the recent months or a year or so, there's a huge increase on the violence against Asian Americans, and that kind of things does affect people's choices, and that's what I have been observing in the recent years.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made that point. And I think just from the political perspective, it's incredibly frustrating to see so little traction in confronting that violence, and it's obvious that the rest of the world is noticing this. So yeah. I'll turn to you, Daniel. Same question. Is the United States still appealing to international students, to travelers, to immigration? And if not, what are the consequences of that?
Yeah, I just share my experiences, and actually I'm working in international office, and my majority is to consulate my student to apply the university in different words. So honestly, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, my students, the first priority is United States. Yeah, but after political issue or Trump's policy, and they are not welcome to immigration, and all like Saab's mentioned, the security issue, anti-immigration issue, and guns issue, everything. And the most important is that the tuition fee in United States, I can say that is one of the most expensive in the world. Yeah, after COVID, I heard that in Chicago, it almost increased like 100,000 per year. It's really crazy. Yeah, so after this year, my student is United States still provides very premium education quality, and still one of the options for the students, for international students, but not the only anymore. And because the other countries like UK, they provide lots of scholarship to international students. Netherlands, they even just 1/3 of the tuition fee to the international students. And Canada, they attract lots of immigration. Even you just got a bachelor degree and you work for 1 year, you can get residency. So lots of potential factors that influence all the international students. So like if I have 10 students, they are going to apply the different countries, 10, maybe just one will apply, considering the United States. Yeah, and the others, they might consider Germany, free tuition fee, Japan, Singapore is an education hub in Asia, and they can also get a degree from United States, right? Or UK or other country. So I think still provide very good opportunity to the students, but it's not the only option right now, honestly. Yeah, this is from my real experiences.
Right, and it seems like really savvy, smart students are aware of all these factors, and they're shopping. They're looking around for the best opportunity at the best price, and that's yeah, we're seeing that. I turn it to you, Prakash, and then I want to hear from our students on this, and then we'll go into another topic. But Prakash, your thoughts on the appeal of the United States? Does it still hold? What do you think?
To be honest, so I agree with some of the points the previous speakers they mentioned, that in Nepal also many students and they are pursuing to Canada and Australia, especially in Australia. So because of people, they feel that US is expensive, and this is very difficult for visa process for Nepalese, and they are rejected in visa. So that is another reason, and we can feel that in our context. And some political instability and political frustrations, the people they have been observing throughout Nepal also about the US, and that has also brought something to think among the young and youths here in Nepal. So, and they are pursuing to Australia and Canada than US. So I agree with some of the points the previous speakers they mentioned that. So, but for the higher studies, is regarding its quality and regarding its dimension. So people trust to US, but I agree with this whatever previous speakers said. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Prakash. Senna, Colin, do you have thoughts on this? You want to jump in on this topic, and then we'll go in another direction?
Sana, do you want to go first? All right. Okay. I'm so excited. I got my data here. If you go to visionofhumanity.org, you can look at what's called the Global Peace Index. And just to give you some context, as was already brought up, we have a big affinity for guns here. And you'll note that Australia and Japan, two countries that have strict legislation on guns at the moment, are very high up on the Global Peace Index. So much so that Japan is at rank number 12, and this is out of 163 countries. We are at 122. Think about that. Australia is at 16. We're at 122. We are below almost everyone. And we're supposed to be a first world country. So I think that says a lot when you look at the data. And while it does note in this report that globally militarism has gone up and things have been getting more violent, unfortunately, across the world, I think you'll note that the trends here certainly go a bit beyond the global trends. So I like to look at this kind of stuff to get sort of a grounded view on what's going on, but I don't think the United States is that safe. I think we lie and say that it is, and we prop up, our ideologies and say, no, it's fine. More guns will solve the problem, or, whatever. I don't know. It's a mess, really.
I won't argue with you, Colin. Senna, do you want to add to that, or?
I want to add some personal experience. I definitely relate to that.
Great.
We migrated to the US because it's safer and it's better. And then at Santa Clarita, especially because it's safe. And then my siblings went to Saugus, and then the shooting happened. So there's this aspect of yeah, it is safe, but then it's not 100% safe. And we came to the one of the safest areas, but still that happened. So, there's still the chance of risking risking your life.
Right. I mean, the statistically, the Santa Clarita Valley is a low crime area, and yet what you just described happened right in this community, and so it's always a possibility, as you know, firsthand. Thanks for sharing that. So different direction here, different topic, and it's a topic about misinformation or even disinformation. And I'll turn to Daniel first here. Daniel, how do we confront, as societies, but also as educational institutions, how do we confront the problem of misinformation?
How can we confront, right?
Yeah, how do we push back? How do we minimize? How do we deal with the problems of misinformation and some of which might occur on social media? In other words, how do young people find out what's true anymore?
I think it's a very tough questions to answer because most of the young people, they are influenced by social media. They either trust social media and then they don't trust what the elder or more well-experienced people talking. Yeah, this is what is actually happened right now at this moment. Yeah, so I think we need to do some action from here. So try to guide them and try to show them how to have a critical thinking and how to think logically, because they really influenced by the film. It's just maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Let's take an example right now. People TikToks, they try to do violence in the high school campus. So all the all the students in different countries, they start to do this, mutilate this. So I think it's quite interesting. It's not interesting. It's very worst problems right now, and they don't have chances to tell what is true, what is not true. They just feel it's so fun. And regarding to the misleading question or misinformation, not only youth, even the adults, lots of countries, they are express lots of fake news and try to influence the elections. It's really happened even in Taiwan, yeah, every day, and with lots of fake news happen every day. So I think it's really difficult. So the government should have the policy just update all the information immediately. This is the first thing. And second, we need to guide the teenager how to rethink or slow down a little bit to check all the information the source come from and what you are thinking. And the third one, I think the most difficult part is that like a Facebook or all the social media, they have like I don't know how to say roots. They will attract or showing the same interest of your reading, your information. And so you will think that, oh, the world is like this. Yeah, so it's very, very a difficult problem we are facing now. Yeah, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you're saying. I mean, you might think of people on social media platforms in these sort of closed circles, right? And it's hard for them to get out of those. Sally, you I want to come to I want to continue this, but Sally, you have a thought here?
Yeah, I want to continue with this topic. I think the teenager change their mind via their own age friends or students. So if we can use the social media for real testimonies, I mean, we can use one of the North Africa students to tell the other students about what happened to him, how the journey was, one from Asia, one from Europe, one from each country we have, so they can, I mean, the other students, they can figure out, and it's not us, we are not convincing them, they get opinions from their own age. So continue with the same topic, but make it specific for the teenager. I mean, real testimonies.
Right, and have a more direct dialogue between, okay, yeah, I think that's smart. Thank you. Sen, you want to add to this thought?
I wanted to say, like, as a young person who is always on social media and I see all kinds of fake news, right news, I think for myself, I think it's my responsibility also to check the resources and not just believe everything I see on TikTok or Instagram. And I've definitely have been in the place where I shared fake news and I was like, wait, this is not right. And I had to take it down and research more about it and think to myself, okay, maybe I shouldn't share right away. Maybe I should think more about it and research more before I share to my followers or my friends or my family. And I think Instagram has also been like getting better at this. I know they've been flagging fake information, especially about the vaccine. I've been seeing messages that says under certain posts, hey, this might not be the correct information. Please visit the CDC website or a government website that would tell you exactly what are the correct information or resources.
Yeah, and I think that's so smart, and I appreciate both your comments. And just to add, I think there's this mistaken belief that that young people are more susceptible to misinformation, and I don't think that's the case. I think people of all, we're learning all the time that people of all ages are susceptible to this. And so, yeah, thank you for that, Colin. What's up? We have something to add to this?
Yes, from what you just said. I think it's really interesting because earlier Daniel had said that we should focus on listening more to our elders and to, listening to those who have experience instead of just some influencer on social media. And while I completely agree with that, it's also true that a lot of students, younger students, they get their beliefs from their parents, and their parents might be the misguided ones too. So I think it's a complicated situation, but I'm actually kind of interested to hear from everyone on what they think we should do to really combat that. Because, when I think about it, I think, well, we could, as a school, we could delve into that social media. We could give those testimonies that you were talking about and really try to get it popular and spread it amongst everyone. But what do you do when an individual distrusts the government, distrusts any official body that says these things? Because then it doesn't matter how you reach out to them. It might actually make them angrier and make them stick in their vacuum more. So that's what I'm curious to know about.
Yeah, I think that's an enormous problem, and I certainly don't have a solution to that, but I think you're right. Prakash, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I'd like to add some points. Like,
Great.
Digital skill is very important to cascade these days. So one of the greatest skill for 21st century, that is digital skill, and we need to train up to face and confront these challenges. And another thing is netiquette, so we can train up the netiquette, what the netiquette is. The person who is advertising or product, but he might not be using that product, There are some rhetorical devices people are using and distracting others. So we should have the deep knowledge and deep learning on that point. And as Daniel said, we should be critical. We should have the critical knowledge and thought on that point, whether it is truth based or not. The person who knows the truth will set free. There is a saying that the person who knows the truth will set free. That means if we don't know the truth and we will be distracted, and the youths will be, they can't further and they can't go ahead. So that is the challenging point among the youths. So they are being distracted by different others, misinformation and distractions. So to cope with it is to train up the digital skill, netiquette, and being digitally diplomat person. And it makes changes. And I request to be critical also, and we have to know the logos and ethos and pathos of something, people persuade them, others to convince, to attract the attentions. So we should be, whether it is a truth-based or not. This much. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And you really have to almost look at sort of the mechanics of how information operates and how it's spread. And absolutely. Saab, jump in here.
Yeah, I mean, this is great. I mean, just talking to students and scholars, and you learn so much in such a short time. Prakash just said, truth shall set you free. And that's a Bible verse, it's a Bible quotation. But That's absolutely true, though, right? And so that's one of the things I emphasize. And one of the reasons, and for those of you who are at COC knows that there is this new class, which is liberal arts mathematics, where we study logic, probability, statistics, and critical thinking. I know critical thinking is this buzzword that's emphasized in every course that we offer, but especially in that kind of class where we take people who are not majoring in science and teach them how to read quantitative information, how to critically analyze what's given. And that is so important in today's society, because people throw data like, okay, so we have thousands of people who are vaccinated, but are still getting sick with COVID. And that happens to be true, right? Because, with a fraction of 100 million people is a lot of people. But that kind of thing, if you teach young people how to critically, and it doesn't have to be young, it has, if you teach people how to think critically, how to quantitatively analyze what's given, and that will lead you to the truth, and that's what's really important. So I think as educators, one of the things we have to do is to teach that, to teach how to think critically, how to think quantitatively. Yeah, we call that mathematical or quantitative literacy, not just to be able to read, but to be able to read data and come to the right conclusion and to reject fallacies. That is really, really crucial, I think.
So I love what you're saying, Saab, and I just want to mention, it's been about a month, but you gave a great talk about mathematics and the COVID vaccine. And if it's handy, I would love it if you would share the link in the chat. If it's not accessible, that's fine. But it was a fantastic talk that kind of, I think, really is exemplary of what you're talking about there. So I want to turn this to Ryan. Misinformation. What do we do about this?
It's a pretty challenging one. One thing I could think of is maybe like source citing.
Mm-hmm.
On social media, there isn't hardly any source citing. So I think that would really be an aspect of combating misinformation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a practical thing that you could start to implement right away. We just haven't had the will to do it. But I think that's a great point. This is great. And I love the thoughts here. I want to move on to another question, though. What lessons have you learned from living through a pandemic? Because none of us have done this before, right? Unless you were around in 1918, and all of you look way too young for that. If you're 104, then I salute you. But what lessons have we learned? I'll turn to Daniel first, if that's okay. Daniel, what lessons have you learned from living in this pandemic experience? Oh, Daniel, you're muted. Can you unmute?
Sorry.
No, you're good. Thanks.
I think pandemic, what we learned is that we need to face the problem, react quickly, and everything should be changed immediately. And we take online for example. Before pandemic, we don't think that online course is reliable. Yeah, we never think about that. Yeah, if someone say, hey, I'm taking online bachelor degree, we will think that, oh, are you sure it's a standard course, it's a premium one? But right now, everything become possible. We even don't need to go to school, and all the behavior, parents, educators, students suddenly change. Yeah, so I think through the pandemic, I learned innovation and react the information quickly and grab try whatever you think is possible. I think this is a big thing. I treat this as a good way, not that it's so sad in the pandemic period. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Well said. I think there's obviously some obvious negative things about the pandemic that needn't be explained, but you're right. There's room for optimism too. Ryan, you have thoughts on this? What lessons have you learned from living in a pandemic, through a pandemic?
In terms of education, I learned that education can become more accessible for people who maybe don't have the time to sit in a math and like a 3-hour math class. They could still be able to access it for like through like online recordings or just things like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And as a teacher, I mean, I've had to make those changes to be more accessible. Where I teach here at College of the Canyons, open access is a core value, and we've had to really walk that walk and live that value very quickly. We were open access before the pandemic, but we're doing that in a different way now. I think that's a great point, Ryan. Prakash, what lessons have you learned living through a pandemic?
Yeah, this is an outcome, right? So I have been talking with you. So this is a great result of pandemic. I mean collaboration and winning. So we can collaborate each other and win-win. So that means we can share the ideas. We can connect the peoples all over the world. So I have been speaking in different conferences. So this is a great dimension for me personally. And the students, they have been updated with digital world and they can get opportunity. And they have learned if somebody asks something to the student and they Google up, it means that they can explore themselves. And the self-directed learning has been developed. The students can learn themselves by YouTube tutorial videos and searching engines, so playing with the documents. So that is the great outcome, and learning process has not stopped. It has grown and gone up. But in another hand, so there are some problems also, like they are losing the netiquette. Some of the people, they have been digitally addict, so they have been playing the games on digital games, and they have been facing the problems. So it has both aspects, but in my case personally, as an educator, I have learned a lot. I have gained a lot of friends throughout the world, and I have shared and learned and exchanged the ideas. So collaboration and communication, and we are winning. So this is a great outcome. Thank you.
Thanks for that. I appreciate that. I want to turn to our outstanding students. Senna, what lessons have you learned living through a pandemic?
I've learned patience.
Oh boy, you're so right.
We did not know it was just going to be 14 days of quarantine. It's not 14 days. It's been well over a year. Mm-hmm. So I've definitely learned patience. That was a big lesson during the pandemic. I also learned to focus on myself and then to reconnect with people. I've reconnected with a lot of friends from, because I've moved a lot. I've reconnected with friends from DC and from New York that I didn't talk to when I moved here. So it had downs, but it also had a lot of ups.
Yeah, I think those are great points. And I would just add, I feel like obviously a lot of downs, you're right, but patience, but also I have noticed a conversation around the world about self-care that I hadn't noticed as much until this pandemic. And people are really talking about that in interesting ways. And I have a lot to learn about that, but that's been interesting for me. Colin, lessons learned. What do you think?
Wow, for me, so many, because I'm, an introvert at heart. And prior to the pandemic, I wasn't really involved in clubs. I was sort of meandering through my major, which I didn't really feel passionate about. I wasn't really communicating with people. And then everyone online and they came into my world. So it made it a lot easier for me. So I actually learned leadership through the pandemic. I've learned communication. I've learned, really what other students and other people value, because I've been able to have this conversation I haven't been able to have before. And now there are more people that seem to understand, like you said, there's this focus on self-care. And before, it wasn't so much the conversation. You've got the happiness ideal I talked about earlier, where anything other than happiness is to be frowned upon. And so that's how our society is. But now I think it's shifting a little bit to, oh yeah, there are people struggling, because I'm struggling now too. I think it comes down to, there's a lot of people who brush a lot of things under the rug if they haven't experienced it themselves. And now a lot of people are experiencing anxiety for the first time, depression. And I think overall it's good because it's exposing people to some of the stuff that's been, in my opinion, an endemic prior. So it's been amazing.
Great points. I want to bring June into this conversation. The question I have is, what lessons have you learned from living through a pandemic?
Wow, where do I start? I'll start with apologizing for missing part of the great conversation.
Oh, you're great. You're fine. You're fine.
Very important phone call.
No problem.
From abroad. Yeah, so I think the number one thing we all learned from the pandemic is, again, it's a global village, right? No one can live apart from it. The virus travels as much as we travel, so everything is connected, is interconnected. And this is a global village where we need to pay more attention to those underprivileged areas where they don't get the luxury of vaccines, they don't get luxury of education, they don't get the luxury of all the privilege we do. But more importantly, it's our due diligence and responsibility to bring more people up to speed, to educate more people with and equip them with all these knowledges, right? This is, as an international educator, this is our duties, is to help them to get more educated. So in international education, also needs to be bi-directional. I keep on saying this at every occasion. It has to be bi-directional. Not just we bring more international students over here, giving them the knowledge, getting them on par, with everything. But more importantly, is educate our own students to travel abroad, understanding different perspectives, and not just going to Europe, right? Go to Africa, go to Asia, go to South America, understanding what's really happening overseas. What is going on in Middle East? They are way advanced than some of us think, because the news can be tilted, can be biased, may not cover everything, right? So this two-dimensional world we're living in right now doesn't really represent what's the reality out there. So if pandemic taught us anything is, really have a well-rounded understanding of the world, have a personal experience, with actual visits, understanding, inclusivity, and communication, right? And you need to talk to people. You need to really understand each other. Those are all great lessons that we have learned. And again, once again, last thing, how much technology can do. Overnight, we all became online universities one way or another, right? It's debatable how effective it is, but it's proven that there's so much we can learn from each other, and so much we can do, in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, and you're right about the technology component of this, because if this pandemic occurs 20 years ago, we're not having this conversation. Our classrooms aren't functioning. So yeah, that's such a great point. Before we move on, because we've all lived through this pandemic, would anyone else like to share their lessons learned? They've had enough of the pandemic. Okay, I don't blame you. Okay, fair enough. So next question. I teach American history, and in American history, we talk about the so-called Roaring 20s. In the 1920s, the United States and other parts of the world too came out of a global pandemic. They came out of a world war, and there was economic growth. There was rising standards of living. There was also enormous racial and ethnic strife. There was enormous problems. But the decade of the 1920s was seen for many, and not all, let's be clear, as a time of hopeful progress and technological advance. And so my question for each of you is, Are we headed towards a roaring 20s in the 2020s? And I'll phrase this another way. What are you hopeful about as we move, hopefully, out of a pandemic? What are you hopeful about in the next decade or for the rest of this decade? I'll just go right back to June, if that's okay. What are you hopeful about in the next decade?
Wish list. Yes. I wish, first of all, I have a crystal ball so I know what's going to happen next. Of course, number one thing, let's wish this pandemic ends sooner than it's supposed to, right? So let's then we come back to normal and start visiting, start mobilizing, start bring families and friends together again. Let's have hugs and have meaningful conversations. No more wars, no more fights, right? But if you're really talking about my real wish list is bring the true U.S. back again. Bring what we're good at, to the global platform. Let people know that U.S. is welcoming, is inclusive, is diversified, and most importantly, is still number one and most attractiveness to the international students. So we need to reform that image. If anything, I hope the government in the near future can devote more resource and more support, both publicly and financially, into this sector and show what they really mean, right? So in terms of visa processing, immigration policy, and devotion into international education, advocacy, all of that. If only this nation can work together, as a whole, then all of us will benefit. That is truly my wish list. In the upcoming years.
Yeah, I share your view there, and it's a daunting task. It's a challenging task, but I think you're right. I think it's going to take partnerships and new partnerships in the next several years. Thank you for that. Prakash, what are you hopeful about in the next decade, for the rest of this decade?
Yeah, people will bring a great dimensions from local to bottom to top levels. They can bring changes by collaborations and communications, and they can develop the good leadership skill. And that leadership skill can be servant leadership skill. And the people, the government, the stakeholders, they can facilitate each other, and they can cooperate. There will be the more cooperation than competition. So I agree, some emotional aspects also, some intelligent aspects also. So the world will go in a great directions so people will have the mutual, that rapport, that relations, and they can collaborate and win, and they will have the having the skills of 21st century skills, and they can adopt these skills, and they can elevate each others, they can wish each other. So I have such kind of wish list that the world will be regaining that mutuality, that rapport all over the nations, between the nations, among the nations. So like we are sharing now from Nepal, and some are from Japan here, some are from Vietnam or Thailand or US. So what we are doing, this is a platform, this is a home, and we can share, we can learn, we can be diplomat in different aspects, politically, religiously, culturally, digitally. So these aspects I really wish. Thank you.
Yeah, great points all around. Daniel, same question to you, sir. What are you hopeful about? All right, let's put it in. I like June's phrasing of that. What's your wish list for the next several years?
I think after pandemic, it really forces us to rethink the whole world. For example, we rely on some supply chain, but right now we found that after pandemic, we start to think the second supply chain, or we try to work differently. So I think it really that's people right now, all the politicians, to think about the new world. This is what I think, and not like the previous who ruled the world. So people start to think from different country, and we never think about that. we try to innovate the new skill, new technology, and we try to learn from different society. So I think my vision list is that the world will become the more creative, more innovation. Just like in education, we can start to using online and to get the diploma. And we never think about that previously or seriously. Yeah, and probably the kids can learn through the new technology and learn it self-learning at home, or they can travel to different places and using different way and create new technology, new innovation. So this is what I think people can start to rebuild and rethink the new world for the next generation.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's kind of one of my takeaways from this entire conversation is how do we harness the power of technology for the better, to improve the world. And I like that. I like that thought. Ryan, what are you hopeful about? What's your wish list for the rest of this decade?
To Daniel's point, I really agree with what he was saying. I think this is a great opportunity to take advantage of the things we did learn. So maybe instead of trying to go back to where we were, maybe try to see how we can improve on maybe some of our old ways of doing different things.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. And when we talk, you hear this phrase new normal a lot. And I think, but if you dive a little deeper into that concept of new normal, I think there's a lot of people that don't necessarily want to go back to the old way of doing things. They want something different. They want to take a lot of elements. You know, I like June's point about we want to go back to hugs and being with friends and family. That's the old normal I think most of us want to be a part of. But we don't necessarily want to go back to all the other things that were holding us back and limiting us and harmful. Yeah, thank you. Sana, what are your thoughts on this? What do you hope? You are all such positive people, so I know you have hopes here. What are your thoughts?
I think we're becoming more communicative. I've never thought that I would meet someone internationally from my bedroom. And today we did, well, from work, but I still did. And I think we're gonna be we're gonna meet more people from all over the world, not just the US. And I really like that about that outcome from the pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's true. I think it's true. Colin, what are you hopeful for? What's on your wish list?
You think I'm positive? Oh, I'm a pessimist, but no, I'm really
positively pessimistic.
There you go. I agree with most of what's been said. You know, I believe in hybridization of education and the workforce. I don't think that everything needs to be in person. I mean, some of us know that are in a lot of committees, it sometimes feels like, oh, this could have been handled over an email, or we could have, had a quick, Zoom session over it rather than everyone assembles in one conference room and we're all just, hanging there for an hour. So I just, especially in education, I think the shift needs to turn away from assessments determining your worth as an individual and, being hyper-focused on preventing cheating. How about instead we focus on making the examinations and the education a little bit more catered towards qualitative, assessment rather than, I want you to follow this rigid set of rules and do it exactly my way, and everything else should be shirked. And I'm going to give you a PowerPoint directly from the publisher, and I'm not going to actually teach you. You know what I mean? So I think there's a shift, I'm hoping, away from that. And also with Zoom, we're expanding beyond just our local areas to teach. And I'm a big fan of that. So I'm very hopeful for that to continue.
Yeah, thanks. Anyone else want to share their hopes for the next several years? I have other thoughts, other questions, but anyone want to jump in on hopes or wish lists for the next several years? No comment. Okay. So Colin, you took us back to education, which is what we've been kind of diving into this entire conversation. My next question is, and I guess I'll just take it right back to you, Colin, and we'll work our way back with the others. there's this concept of low-hanging fruit, right? Things that you could change quickly, so to speak, that you could address right away. What if there was one thing, and I'm reluctant to just narrow it down to one thing, but if there was one thing in the world of education right now that you could change, what would it be? He's thinking. You're muted and thinking.
I said that's such a hard question. There's so many things I'd like to see change, but if I had to pick one, boy,
or two.
I have, oh, this is not really related to the pandemic. I have a wish.
Oh, it doesn't have to be. Let's just go. You're great.
I have a wish for, and please don't set me on fire for suggesting this, but I think that teachers should be paid a lot more to encourage more people coming in that really care about helping students out, and that in that way, by being paid more, they're going to be rewarded more for the work they're putting in, which is immense. But to trade for that, I'd like to eliminate tenure. So that's my wish list. Don't hurt me. I'm very nice, I promise.
You seemed nice. You seemed nice, and then you kind of took it in a different way.
I just think, there's a lot of situations where I find people have gotten a bit cozy, and they are still pushing out those PowerPoints straight from the publisher. And it's like, why couldn't I just do this on an online course where I don't even talk to you then, if that's how you were going to teach? And I know it's hard to teach. I know it's a lot of work. I get it. I'm not trying to be rude, but I've struggled especially in STEM, dealing with people that, were more interested in the subject they had than learning how to communicate it to the individual. And I really, really hope that changes. And I really hope they get paid for changing that, because they deserve to. So that's sort of my wish list. That's the one thing I would change.
I think that's a very fascinating point. And I'm a tenured history professor, so I obviously have feelings in that area. But I will tell you that prior to being a teacher, I was an education researcher. And one of the areas I worked on was going into public school districts and measuring the effectiveness of merit pay programs, where school districts would pay teachers for certain outcomes and pay them bonuses for certain outcomes. And it's very complicated and very controversial and very politicized. But one of my takeaways was that that more teachers than you might imagine were open to incentives. They were open to changing the tenure system. They were open to changing the way we've been doing things. Many were not open to that. But I will say that your point is not, it's not that controversial in some circles. I think there are a lot of people that would agree with you that you're right to, I think, to frame it as a trade-off, right? I mean, we want to reward your skill and effectiveness, but we need something in exchange for that calls for greater accountability. So I understand your point there, and it's a good point. So June, I'll turn to you. This is a toughie because I'm asking you to narrow something down, but if you could make one change in education, what would that change be? What would you change in education right now?
Wow, how surprising. Yeah, if I can change one thing, I'll make it free, right? I'll make it free, yeah. So I know that's what the kids want to hear, but it's not something, it's not a socialism idea. A lot of people, in the capitalist world think, okay, you could just be in communism and socialism. It's not, this has been done worldwide, and Europe, Asia, Middle East. I mean, I traveled enough. I've been to more than 60 countries and regions. So, I've been like a lot of places, and I look at all the other systems. This has been proven. The K-14 education free. It's not a dream. And college education free, even graduate education free. It's not a dream. So it's doable. It's just the system needs a significant investment, and there's a lot of consequences. I'm not going to go through detail because, but it's not something just dream talk. But if one thing I can do, or if I want to change, That's probably the thing, make it more attractive, more affordable for students.
No, I think you're right. I mean, we here in California, we know that tuition-free model worked to some degree. So I think you're right. I think that's absolutely a great wish list. Prakash, one area of education, what would you change?
Yeah, as I also agree with June, but I would like to add my one. So that is we can educate the nations, those who are developing, and we will be targeting these countries, those which are developed, well-developed countries will help to elevate and cascade the knowledge and ideas and education policy to the developing countries or underdeveloped countries. And we can exchange, they can exchange. And in education policy, there will be the exchanging and collaborating. So I would like to bring such kind of dimensions, that is international dimension in education system in every nation. That is my
all of these are outstanding ideas. Absolutely. Daniel, I hate to do it, but one change in education, what would you do?
Yeah, I think all the culture has different benefits and good cores. So if I can change, I want that all the classroom is to be opened. And if there's a new technology, probably we can transfer different language easily. So we can learn from different, for example, I can just attend a Spanish course. Maybe they are talking about some technology part or science part in Spanish, and we can translate into the language that we understand. So that I think it's quite difficult, but if probably one day it might be happens, we just open all the classrooms in the world, and students, they can choose whatever they like. They are interested, they just join it, yeah, and they can do lots of self-learning. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like the technology is almost in place now, but there are other barriers that might make that challenging. But I love that, and I think I could foresee that happening. I think that's so smart. Ryan, what do you think? An area of education you'd like to change?
An area I think I would want to change is having lower tuition for public institutions to make them more accessible for students who want to continue or even just be able to continue their education.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think, I was talking with someone about this yesterday. It was especially an acute problem here in California, which is even if we make college free here in California, we have a housing crisis in California. So I worry about where are my students, sleeping tonight. And so I share your view there. Absolutely. Senna, what do you think? What's an area of education you would like to change?
I'm so glad that June and Ryan mentioned the tuition. As a student, I worry about like the tuition, and now that I'm working on transferring, tuition is a big part of deciding where I'm going. So that would be amazing if we could change something about it, but also make it more accessible. I know that now with Zoom, we have more options and we have had it more accessible. And I know some international students even join us on Zoom for a semester before they move into the United States. So if we can do that, why can't we make it even more accessible to more students around the world, not just those students that we're working with?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. We have 4 minutes left, and I could continue this all night, but I know we all have things to do. So are there questions we haven't addressed? Are there questions from our audience here? Are there questions in the chat that we should dive into? I know there's a lot of different topics we could have tackled tonight, but are there other questions we should discuss? everyone's either really polite or really tired or a little bit of both. I think it's all
No
this.
question from the chat.
Great. Oh, you have a question for Sally? You have a question, or there is a question in the chat? Is that?
There is no questions
Okay.
from the chat.
Okay, thanks. Well, why don't we do this? I have loved this conversation, and I hope we can do it again. And when I say that, one of these days, I'm going to invite all of you to come back and do this again. So be on the lookout for that, because this was fantastic. I love the exchange of ideas. It's really rare that I'm in a room full of people where I just nod my head until it hurts because I agreed with so much of what I heard tonight. It's impressive. I'm inspired by it, and I'm grateful for it. So thank you. It means a lot to me. So before we close things out, we have a poll that we'd like to distribute. It's a quick 3-question poll for your take on our event tonight. And once we've completed the poll, we'll call it an evening. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this. I hope you did too. And we appreciate it. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock Pacific time, we'll have our closing event. It's a town hall event where we're going to try to sum up everything we've learned this week. And I invite all of you to attend if you can. I know you're busy, but we'd love to see you there. Again, that's 1 to 2:30 tomorrow as our closing event of this year's International Forum on Youth. So thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.